Governor Ray had earned a well-deserved reputation for his openness to welcoming Southeast Asian refugees. This had come from in 1975 when the Thai Dam people, a diverse ethnic group from Laos who had escaped communism and were being resettled in the United States along with all the Vietnamese and Cambodian refugees. And at that time, refugees are going to be scattered all over the US and be resettled in every state. The Thai Dam had written to Governor Ray saying, please keep our culture intact, our language intact, our family relationships intact. Please accept us. In fact, they wrote to every governor in the United States. Only governor to respond was Governor Ray. He had gotten agreement from the White House that Iowa could have all the Thai Dam, and they were welcomed here. And it was at their reception that where I spoke and brought a letter from the president that I first met Governor Ray. So it was natural that I would continue to follow refugee issues while I was now a member of Governor Ray's staff in 1978 and the beginning of 1979. And to recall that after settling 130,000 refugees from Indochina in 1975, America had closed its doors. Well, the effect of 3 years of harsh communist rule on South Vietnam drove many people, particularly those who had been allied with the United States, to take desperate risks to escape, to risk death to be able to live in freedom. And people started in small numbers, getting on small boats late at night, floating down canals, onto rivers, and ultimately out into the South China Sea, into the huge ocean, and trying to make their way in craft never meant to be on an ocean, somehow to a nearby country, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, anywhere you could get where you would be able to be in freedom, and then hopefully go on to resettlement in another country like the United States or Australia, France, traditional countries of resettlement. And as these boat people were finding their way out, it became more and more noticed. Correspondent for CBS News, Ed Bradley, had a camera crew, and he was out on an island in Malaysia in early January 1979, and he filmed there with his TV crew to make a half-hour news show for a program called CBS Reports. And the program aired in January of 1979, and Governor Ray was at a Drake basketball game that evening, and as he often would do, came back to the office to work after the game. So it's like 9:30 or so at night. He comes to the office. We've recorded the show, and I said, Governor, you have to see this. So we sit down and we replay on the TV with the video recorder, and we replay the show. And here's Ed Bradley, and he's standing on the beach on this small, remote, tropical island, and he's explaining that this boat full of refugees from Vietnam had landed here, seeking refuge, seeking asylum, seeking to be taken in. The local authorities, fearful of being overrun, inundated with refugees that no one would take, did what they thought was humane. They gave water, some supplies, and then pushed this boat back out into the ocean. So Bradley's there on the beach. He's looking, the camera's rolling, he's speaking into his microphone, and you see over his shoulder, out in the waves, as the boat is being buffeted back and forth, and suddenly it breaks apart. And you see the boat breaking up on TV, and people are now falling off into the water. And Bradley turns around and he's looking at this and he's seeing it. He's seeing what his camera is recording, and he starts just talking about it and how awful it is. And so many people, of course, are drowning. Some others somehow get washed up by the waves. They start coming up, washing up onto the beach. Bradley drops the camera, runs over. He's helping pick people up, pull them up out of the water, trying to save them. It was stunning. We were transfixed watching this. Governor Ray was so deeply moved by what he saw and not understanding. And I remember he stood up and started walking around the office and saying, "Why is this happening? Why is it happening?" And I'm walking with him and I'm explaining that there are no refugee numbers. The president has closed the doors after the end of at the end of the Vietnam War, and we took 130,000 refugees. President Ford said, "That's it, we've taken everybody who's out there." President Carter had continued that, but there was not any political willingness to do this. That would have to be changed. Governor went back and sat down. We're watching more of the show, and they start running some footage of refugees, happier scenes of refugees arriving in 1975. And the footage they ran, you could just see people getting off a plane, and there's luggage and everything stacked. And the camera shot zooms in on a luggage tag, and it says the person's name, and it says Des Moines, Iowa. It's random CBS footage. It's Des Moines, Iowa. It was like a signal. It was like a sign. Governor Ray said, "I'm going to write to the president. I'm going to tell him that if he will only reopen America's doors, Iowa will double the number of refugees from Indochina that we have already resettled." We drafted a letter for the governor. He signed it. The next morning, he called a press conference, all the TV cameras, and he reads the letter and said, Iowa will double the number of refugees we've already taken. Mr. President, if you will only reopen America's doors to accept these people. So the governor of Iowa became the first political governing official in the world to say his political entity, the state of Iowa, would accept boat people, refugees, who were facing such terrible situation, dying at sea, running out of gas, marauded by pirates, murdered, and then even if they made it to shore, pushed back out into the ocean. The governor was responding, even though those refugees were as different from him and most Iowans as they possibly could be. And certainly no one in the world expected the governor of Iowa to do anything about this issue. The governor was driven by his own moral upbringing and his sense that he had an obligation to his fellow human beings, even though they might be different from him in every way. The language he spoke, the color of their skin, the religion that they followed, the customs they practiced. That was the moral leadership of Robert Ray on this cold January night in 1979.